In much of the developed world, our waste is out of sight and out of mind for many. But what happens to our trash can have dire implications for us all, especially the global South. Award-winning journalist Oliver Franklin-Wallis explores this in his book, Wasteland. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So waste is certainly not a glamorous topic, but why should we all be paying attention to what's happening with our trash?
Well, as you said, waste is actually this gigantic problem that most of us don't think about. You know, for us, particularly in the global north, if you're in the US, you shove something in the bin, you forget about it. And you don't realize that quite often that's just the start of a very long journey. For a lot of things, you know, it might end up on a container ship and going across oceans and ending somewhere in the global south. So for me, I saw waste and as this kind of slightly fascinating world that we never really think about, but it's also the physical side of pollution, of the climate crisis, that we can kind of get a hold on, even if it's sometimes a bit gross.
A little bit gross, but meaningful, certainly. I want to read an excerpt from the book. Rapids might bubble and waves may froth, but we all know almost intuitively that rivers are not supposed to behave like this. I scrape a fingerful of foam off my sleeve, thick and weightless. Looking at it, I'm immediately struck by a gut feeling of violation, that something is wrong. You're writing about a river in New Delhi at this point where chemicals are released along with untreated sewage and wastewater into the river. But you're also talking about water pollution around the world. How did we get to this point globally?
Well, I think you're absolutely right in what you said in your introduction, which is for a long time, in fact, for the best part of the entire 20th century, we've kind of seen waste as something that's out of sight, out of mind. You know, it's kind of a bit gross, so we don't like to look at it. And as a result, we have a waste management industry that kind of operates behind closed doors, out of sight. We look at something like water pollution, which is a huge issue globally. Regulators haven't really been thinking about this stuff. And so we have an ocean that's full of plastic and rivers full of all kinds of chemical pollutions. And it's really time that we kind of got to grips with some of these issues, because it's pretty gross out there.
In this book, you cover the entire world: dumps in New Delhi, e-waste making land in Ghana toxic, plastic dumping in Southeast Asia. Is there any particular community or person that is really seared into your mind as far as the problem being so egregious?
Well, waste is a huge problem around the global south. We see waste as something that's kind of almost solved. But actually, globally, it's only about the recycling rate is only about 20%. There's a huge, we're talking about billions of people who don't have formal waste management that you or I would take for granted. I think one of the most powerful moments for me was I went to Ghana in West Africa, which is where a lot of donations from thrift stores from the UK and Europe and the US and Canada end up. You know, a lot of people think that you take something to the thrift store, you're donating it, it's something good, which it is. But a lot of that time, that waste isn't sold and stored. In fact, only between 10 and 30% of the time does that waste, does that product stay in store and stay in circulation. So there's lots of complexities to a lot of these issues, but it's a real everyday issue for billions of people, and one that we kind of need to have a really honest and open discussion with sometimes, because a lot of the time it's our waste that's ending up there.
How exactly does this continue to happen? I mean, you mentioned there's a history of organized crime that allows this, but is it corrupt governments, capitalism? Is there a way to stop it?
Well, I think, to be honest, we take for granted that waste kind of powers our world. You know, for decades, for example, when we were importing goods from China, they were coming over on container ships, and the container ships were largely going back empty. And until some smart minds thought, actually, you know, what does the booming Chinese economy need? Well, it needs raw materials in the form of our trash. There's various debates going on in US state legislatures about repair, about various things that we're doing with our waste. So it does feel like this is finally the moment when we kind of have an honest conversation about, you know, what's going in the bin and where it goes afterwards.
While you were doing this reporting, were there any places or people you met along the way who make you feel optimistic that the world can still reverse course?
Sure. I would say that while there's a lot of pretty horrendous look at, you know, you showed some footage there, and it does seem pretty bleak. But I was really taken by a lot of the people that I was meeting. For example, you know, I talked about fast fashion waste in Africa. I met designers there who are upcycling our clothes into new designs. We've got a long way to go. A lot of the time, that's kind of cutting back on some of the greenwashing and making sure that the changes are actually real. But I came away feeling positive, and I hope readers will too.
Oliver Franklin-Wallis, we thank you so much. His new book, Wasteland, is now available wherever books are sold.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.